Mac Power Users, episode 606, California Streaming. Hello and welcome back to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I'm joined as always by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hey, Stephen, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a week, iPhone event. We're recording this the night before the podcast-a-thon, so I had like an 8-hour tech rehearsral today.
Yes.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, you're kind of punchy to me today. I feel like how does it happen that the most important, the event of the year, the podcast-a-thon, combines with Apple's most important event of the year, the Apple iPhone announcement week? Yeah. I'm not sure how that happens.
So, the idea is maybe there'll be new iPhones. We have stuff to talk about. And that always seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
But now this is the third year in a row we've done it and thought, oh gosh, that was a terrible idea. So we will see. Maybe next year the podcast-a-thon will be the end of September, kind of after the new iPhone stuff. But it's definitely been a very busy week. But I'm glad to be here with you and not trying to figure out how, audio routing works through like 5 computers running Discord at St. Jude.
I have to share a Stephen Hackett story. Can I do that really quick?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So I'm making a little appearance in the podcast-a-thon tomorrow. So we were doing an audio video check for me. And Stephen wasn't even in the room. It was like some of the technical people and Kathy. Yeah. And we were checking everything. I said, hey, you guys, if you want, I could go to Disneyland and do this off my iPhone in front of the Millennium Falcon. It would be really cool for, people watching to see me somewhere other than my studio. Mm-hmm. And I could literally hear from the other room, Stephen Hackett yelling, no.
Yeah.
So I guess Stephen didn't want the risk of that, of like a bad internet connection or something. But I thought that, just you be you, man. Never change.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll talk about some of the technical aspects behind the podcast-a-thon, because at this point they haven't been proven to work completely. But it's a very complicated technical achievement to make it work. I mean, to the point where, and like I'm an AV guy, right? Like I, speak all this language, like the people running the studio, and I think we're the most complicated event they ever do in the studio. So I think they kind of like that it's like really technical. But at some point today, I was like running like cables like down a hallway around a corner into a server rack with one of the guys. I'm like, do most people who come in for fundraising events help you run cable? He was like, no, you're the only one. I was like, You know what? That makes me feel good. I feel like I'm really serving, and man, the server rack. Good job, whoever put that thing together. Yeah, it's
that
been
a chef's
a day.
Kiss I heard?
It was. Oh, dude, if I could share a picture, I would. It was the cleanest, and it's all AV stuff, right? So it's lots of different. Yeah. It's not just Ethernet where cables are all kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's all sorts of different stuff. And I opened the back of this rack, and it was like you could hear angels singing. It's like, whoa,
Yeah, yeah. The best server room I've ever seen was the Omni Group server room.
I bet.
Those guys, it's like you could eat off the floor in there to begin with, but just like coordinated cables and custom racks and super air conditioning, because a lot of the they manage data for their users, so they keep it very cool in there. And anyway, I thought of you at the time, like, man, if Stephen was here with me, he would be drooling.
Yeah.
But we're not just doing this St. Jude podcast-a-thon. We're raising money for St. Jude, and I want to congratulate you. Since we last spoke, you've hit your goal, your initial goal. Mm-hmm. And frankly, thank 1Password, longtime sponsor of Mac Power Users, who came in at the last minute with a hefty contribution to kind of get you over.
Yeah, they totally killed it. I mean, we had our original goal of $333,000 because it's the third podcast-a-thon. And they gave a very specific amount to meet that goal. And they're like, what, this is awesome, but we're going to keep going. And we're, we're about, I can't count anymore. I don't know, 18 hours from the beginning of the podcast-a-thon. Like, we're coming up on the new goal. It's been so humbling this year because the giving has been so much more and so much faster than any previous year. It really is. It's amazing.
We talked, we had a dinner conversation, the family, we all decided, okay, what can we give up in order to help St. Jude? And we did make a hefty contribution, and it felt great. And I would recommend anybody out there. First of all, I don't want you to, if you're out there and you hear that they hit the goals, don't say, okay, well, then we're good. Because cancer doesn't do that. It doesn't say,
No,
okay, we're good, you know?
no, no, they don't. Cancer doesn't care about that,
Yeah,
and St. Jude's not going to stop, and so we're not going to stop.
exactly. And what I would ask is if you haven't contributed because you hear about people making big contributions, you're like, well, I can't do that. I mean, we went through a pandemic and, a lot of people are suffering right now. But I would ask, think about something you can do. I mean, literally $5 can make a difference. If
Hmm.
everybody in this audience would contribute $5, we would, I mean, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. And so I would ask if if you've had a hard time, but you want to do something, don't feel bad about making a small contribution, because I do think that could make a huge difference, and it will make you feel better too. And I think we all want to kind of lend in together. So I would ask you, if you haven't contributed yet, think about it, even if it's a small amount. And if you have contributed, thank you so much.
Hmm.
We all are so appreciative, and it's like it just brings so much joy to all of us that make these podcasts, that once a year we can help make a difference at St. Jude.
Yeah, it really is. It's such an amazing place. I've been on campus preparing for this, and I haven't been on campus very much over the last 2 years, for obvious
Yeah,
reasons.
yeah.
And I had that feeling today because I sort of had to park in a garage and like walk over to their studio. And I was like, man, it feels like coming home. It feels like a reunion, like me back in this place. And a lot of people don't get to experience that firsthand, but for those of us who do, it's obviously such a blessing, and one that's only made possible because folks do give 5, 10, $15, right? From all over the world. And yeah, definitely, do what you can. We appreciate it. I know on some other shows we've kind of talked about like we're going to talk about for the next hour and a half, we're going to talk about new Apple hardware, and a bunch of us are going to spend or just have spent a bunch of money on new Apple gear. It's like, yeah, maybe, take what that Apple Care was going to be and send it to St. Jude. So thank you all who have been supporting this. If you haven't given or if you want to learn more, the URL is in the show notes. It's the first link in the show notes, but it's stjude.org/relay.
I have a little announcement too that involves money, so hang in there with me. But Devon Think Field Guide is releasing, as this show releases, it will come out the next morning. So the show comes out Sunday, Monday morning. It'll be there. It may even be there Sunday night. Sometimes I put in a little early just to make sure everything's working before all the emails go out. But the about 5 months in the making, and it's 8.5 hours, 100 plus videos. It's the price point is $49, but the entry price is $44 for a limited time. We're going to do a whole show on Devon Think next week. So if you have Devon Think questions, let us know and we'll put it in the outline. But just suffice it to say, I spent a lot of time on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did I get it for beginners, I did it for advanced users. There's 6 interviews with advanced users as well in it. So there's just a lot of content, and
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it. I feel like the production values, I've really been trying to make an effort to do top-notch production values on these things, and I've got people I've hired to help me out with some of this stuff. And anyway, it's done and it's out. And if you're interested in getting better at Devon Think, please go check it out at learn.maxsparky.com.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about it for a really long time. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know how long it was, rolling around in your mind before you shared it with me, but it is fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to talking through it next time. Devin thinks a big app.
One of the nice things with this is I wanted to have sample data, because I feel like to really understand Devon Think, you need to have a lot of data to throw at it. And I couldn't really use like my client database or something like
No,
that.
no.
But my buddy Stephen Hackett gave me 2 gigabytes of data out of his Devon Think Apple history library. And I've got a Dropbox link in the course, so you can download it and use the same data. I thought I wanted to thank you for doing that, Stephen.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, more power users today. Because it was an Apple event week, I thought it'd be fun to talk about some of our favorite Apple events. And we are going to take off the table going in the iPhone event because that's too easy.
The original. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the automatic winner. So
yeah,
you can't do
exactly.
that.
So more power users today. We got some fun to talk about on prior Apple events. But this week, baby, we had our own new Apple event featuring my home state, California.
Yeah, I found it really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. We've seen now probably half a dozen Apple events in this pandemic era. And, Tim Cook's on stage, and then someone else is like walking through a beautiful field at Apple Park. Lisa Jackson was on the roof at one point, which was a little concerning.
Yeah.
But this time, there was still some of that. But we also saw people like Hyan Drance in San Diego at this beautiful venue, and other people in different parts of California. I think Jeff Williams was like on a cliff somewhere, talking about the Apple Watch. And I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, me too. I'm weird about that. The Casey Liss on Twitter said that California people are like Texas people. They're like really proud of their state, and I absolutely agree. The older I get, the more I love being in California. And I grew up, with surfing and boogie boarding and taking advantage of the local mountains. So I love my state, and I was really glad to see some of the pieces of it featured. I know it seems like that was kind of like not the popular opinion. A lot of folks in the tech world were like, come on, we don't care about California. Give us the new phone, right? But for someone like me, it was actually quite enjoyable to see all those locations.
Mm-hmm. The shot that really blew my mind was Tim Cook walking out of the desert. I guess he was at Joshua Tree, it looked like.
Yeah, yeah.
And he stepped out of the desert, like onto the stage of the Steve Jobs Theater, and then the desert is revealed as the background. I was like,
Yeah.
I see you, graphics person. I enjoyed it. I mean, I spend a week or two in California a year, or at least I used to, and I've always really loved it, especially once you're outside of San Francisco itself, and I've gotten to see more parts of California over the years,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was fun. I thought it was different. We've seen so much of Apple Park, and I think it was a nice way for this event to feel different from its predecessors.
Yeah, and honestly, I think there wasn't much more to it than that. That, it's like, okay, we got to do another video event. How many times can we fly the drone around the campus, right?
Right.
So they decided to go statewide, and that's cool.
Mhm.
But I just kind of liked it. But that's just kind of a passing point. In general, of course, the production values are amazing. Apple has really nailed this format of these recorded video things, and I don't know what happens next. Like once we get past COVID, how are they going to go back to the thing where you go on stage and wait for the guy to come out and give you the AR demo? I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I really like the pacing of these events. This whole event was an hour and 15 minutes. They covered a bunch of stuff like we're going to go through in the show. And there was really hardly any fluff in the whole thing. And I'm very curious, what happens when things get better and they can use that fancy Steve Jobs theater? Are they just going to like go to that and this will be something that happened and never happens again?
Yeah, I don't know. They also have that outdoor venue. They've got that theater with the rainbow built over it, and they haven't
Yeah.
used that in the event videos. In my mind, that's going to be like the in between.
Yeah. The
Even like
transition. Yeah.
right, like okay, we can have some people safely here. It'll all be outside, and then maybe they end up back in the Steve Jobs Theater eventually, which is a beautiful venue from everything I've seen of it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't think they may not know. I think they're just kind of trying to do the best they can given the current limitations.
Yeah. I wonder, like, in terms of time spent for the executives, which one takes more time? The time to
Mm.
prep and do a live event or the time to go out and shoot like the pre-canned video? There's part of me that thinks that they're such control freaks about their messaging that the pre-canned video is really going to be really hard not to step away
Mm-hmm.
from, because they know exactly what's going to happen. You're never going to have the event where Steve had to complain about everybody turning off their Wi-Fi devices, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, snafus, no, if there's a demo failure, it's like, oh, we'll just, we'll literally edit it out. And if it's live in front of the whole world, you can't really do that.
Yep. But either way, nice. It was a nice event overall, and they went straight into the meat of it. The first thing we got to hear about is TV Plus, Apple TV Plus. You have a message here in the outline. Tim Cook, is he a good media CEO?
I
Question
think,
mark.
I think he is. I mean, I would say that sitting here today, Apple TV Plus is way more impressive than I thought it would be when it was announced a few years ago. And, they had those sort of initial tries before it was sort of Apple TV Plus, like the Planet of the Apps and then a couple other little projects. So we were just really pretty bad. But I think that overall, the caliber of what's on Apple TV Plus is really pretty good. And there's a lot of it that I haven't seen. I've,
Yeah.
mostly seen sort of the big name stuff, but I think even off the beaten path, there's some really interesting things. And I think that they're definitely leaning really hard into it. I mean, there was a story just the other day about how the Ted Lasso gang, got a big raise
Yeah.
because it's doing so well. And Tim mentioned, we have 130 wins and 500 nominations in 2 years.
Yeah.
And Ted Lasso's like a record for a streaming show. And, I think overall it's been very highly reviewed. And I'm surprised by that, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think they're doing a really good job at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we watch Disney Plus in our house more, which shouldn't be a surprise. But the shows that are on Apple Plus, I have found in general to be very good. And I am, when it comes to Ted Lasso, I am one of those guys who will just not let up. Like I've got
Mm-hmm.
one sister who hasn't watched it yet. And literally every telephone call we have, if she's feeling bad about herself, I say, just watch Ted Lasso
Yep.
for the love of
Yeah.
Pete. Come on. But I think they've done good. We don't really get to talk about that much on Mac Power Users. Apple's TV production stuff is not really a subject that we cover.
Yeah.
But I think they're in much better shape after 2 years than anyone expected, myself included. And I think that it seems like what they did is they hired some smart people, and they're largely standing aside and letting them do their jobs. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope they continue.
Yeah, I would say if you are interested in that, Mike and Jason do a good job over on Upgrade, or they talk about Apple TV Plus and other streaming services fairly often. And it's not something that's super interesting to me, like that business. Like I enjoy the content, but I'm not interested in the ins and outs of the business. But Mike and Jason are. So if that is something you're interested in, Upgrade does a really good job at it, I think.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Text Expander from Smile. Head over to textexpander.com/podcast to get 20% off and type more with less effort. Text Expander removes the repetition out of work so you can focus on what matters most. With Text Expander, you can say goodbye to repetitive text entry, spelling and message errors, and trying to remember the right thing to say. When you use Text Expander, you can say the right thing in just a few keystrokes. Better than copy and paste and better than scripts and templates, Text Expander snippets allow you to maximize your time by getting rid of the repetitive things you type while customizing and personalizing your message. It works on any platform, in any app, anywhere you type. So you can take your time back and increase your productivity with Text Expander. They send you this monthly email that tells you how much time you're saving. I love getting that email because I save hours and days of my life using Text Expander. And show listeners get 20% off their first year. I just sent out an email to a bunch of folks that write about Apple hardware and software about the pending release of the Devon Think Field Guide. So I had this special email. I had a special subject line, and it was going to different people. So I used Text Expander. I triggered a snippet in the subject line. I used the tab key to jump from the subject line to the body. Then I used an embedded Apple script, which Text Expander can do, to put the person's first name in the first line. So it would say, "Hi, Stephen." And then it did a carriage return and filled in the text and the information I needed. It made the whole process just seamless and easy, and just one more way that I use Text Expander to save time in my life. You should check it out too. Head over to textexpander.com/podcast. Let them know you heard about it on the Mac Power Users and start saving yourself time today. All right, when the word iPad went on the screen, what did you think?
I thought, is there going to be an October event? Because, I kind of thought iPad and Mac maybe together next month.
Yeah, and they not only did the word iPad go, but they started going through all this stuff lightning fast. I got thinking, are we going to get MacBooks today?
Just do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was glad to see it. They started with the regular iPad, the no adjective iPad, and it's now in its 9th generation. I mean, the iPad itself is almost 12 years old. I mean, it was announced in early 2010, but they say this is the most popular iPad. It's the one, that looks like, the traditional iPad with the home button at the, the bottom of the screen and the thicker bezels, and it's got the headphone jack. But they sell a ton of these to schools and to enterprise, and it's $329, and so it's sort of lower spec in some areas, or not as nice as some of the other iPads, like the iPad Air or the Pro, but very clearly an important product, even if it may not be that interesting to sort of like tech people.
Yeah, but it's not, A13 is not an old chip either.
No, it's not. No.
Right. And they added the front camera to 12 megapixels and center stage, which is, that was one of the headline features on the iPad Pro like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see that in the cheap iPad this soon. But they also have it in the iPad Mini, which we'll talk about in a second.
True Tone again. I always felt like that was a pro feature. I mean, honestly, I almost think that the 329 is the number one selling point about this iPad. I mean,
yep.
You get into a very powerful computer for $329. There's nothing else in the Apple Store where you get that much bang for the buck. I mean, how much is that fancy keyboard for the iPad Pro? Isn't it like $300?
It's pretty expensive.
Or $200. I think it's $200, but either way, it's almost the cost of this iPad.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's $299.
So I was right. Are you kidding me? It's like that keyboard plus one trip to Carl's Jr. and you've got yourself an iPad,
Yeah.
So
dude, for the 13-inch iPad Pro, it's $349. It's more expensive than this iPad.
So in that case, you get the iPad plus a trip to Carl's Jr.
I've got a couple of these iPads in my house. They're, I don't know, 7th or 8th gen. It's hard to keep track of these.
Yeah.
And they're in cases, it's what the kids use, for homework, or, they play games on them and stuff. And we bought them because they were $329, right? We bought them for the price point, and that really is why this one exists. And it's why it looks the way that it looks, and it's why it uses the first gen Apple Pencil, but that lets Apple keep it cheap. And it's why it's the most popular iPad. And I would imagine, they didn't say this, I would imagine it's the most popular by quite a healthy margin.
So be honest here. All the stuff you do on an iPad, is there anything that you couldn't do on that 329 iPad?
No. I could totally use one of these.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking about it too. I mean, I really like the screen refresh on the iPad, which you turn off, but I really like it. I was just editing a contract with my iPad today thinking I could be doing this on a $329 iPad. But it is, I really think, and frankly, that's part of the problem with the iPad, is that it hasn't advanced to the level where you need anything more than a 329 iPad. But I don't know. I'm glad that they keep making this. I love being able to tell friends who say they want to get an iPad. I love telling them that you can get a $329 one and you're going to be super happy with it.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, if they've used an older iPad or, a phone any time in the last decade, they probably, like the home button, or at the very least they're used to it. And, we talked about this on a connected, but I'll say it here because I think that a lot of people look at this and be like, well, it still has lightning. It's not USB-C. I think for this iPad, for the people who buy this iPad, it's a strength that it uses lightning.
Yeah.
It's a strength that it has the home button, not only because it keeps the price down, but that's what they're familiar with. And that's what what they already know. And so I think a lot of people, including people that I know, like in my family, who have, they just get the cheap iPad every 4 or 5 years. And this is a great update with the A13.
Yeah. And my biggest knock against it is the Apple Pencil. I think the Generation 2 Apple Pencil is so much better than the G1 Apple Pencil. And
Oh, yeah.
because a lot of the work I do on the iPad involves the pencil. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't think I would ever want one at this point. But boy, if they can ever figure out how to get that second generation pencil, maybe in a few years, what is now the iPad Air will become the iPad, 13 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be nice. But yeah, good on Apple for continuing to make a great product at a great price. What about the iPad Mini? Did you see that coming?
That had been rumored, and I think a lot of people really wanted a sort of refreshed iPad Mini. So it's got the flat sides, it's got Touch ID and the power button, it has the pencil too. And I'm really excited about it. It's got a larger screen at 8.3 inches, but from what I have heard, and I think if you look at the website, I think they even have the dimensions, it's actually physically a little smaller.
Yeah.
Than the old one. This just seems like a really cool, like little digital notebook. And I've ordered one. I'm very curious about how this product is gonna be in real life, especially for someone who carries the Pro Max phone. I think this is great.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I had heard rumors of it as well, but I didn't want to invest in them because I felt like the iPad Mini was a product that they could like update, or it could just disappear, or it could be like the iPhone SE and just sit there for years like it was. So I didn't really want to get invested in the idea of an improved upon iPad Mini, but I'm super happy they did it. It feels basically like the iPad Air, but a smaller version. Although it has a better processor than the currently shipping iPad Air, now that I look at it.
Yeah, it's got the A15, and it has the 5 GPU core version, so same as the Pro Max. And what that says to me is that this iPad Mini probably won't get updated every year. It may be 2 or 3 years, but it's going to be in great shape well beyond that. I mean, I would love to know the average age of iPads in use in the world. I bet it's a lot higher than we think it is because
I bet
they
it's a lot
last
higher
so
than
long.
Max. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look at this and say, oh gosh, they're not going to update it in 4 years, I think that's totally fine. I think it will still be great that far down the road.
Yeah. If I'm going to pick nits, I don't like that they made a camera bump on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer. But the iPad Pro has it, the iPad Air has it. That's kind of the way that it goes now, I guess.
Yeah. I've got an iPad Mini. I mean, my iPad situation now is I have I think it's 2018 11-inch Pro. And I sold my big one because I kind of scaled back how I use iPad. So I just have that single iPad. But then I have handed down from one of my kids an iPad Mini. I don't have any idea how old it is, but it's in my bedside table.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it every night. I read Kindle on it, and I read Instapaper on it. And it's just a great like kind of bedside reading iPad. Yeah. And it's so thin and light without the camera bump. You can lay it on the table. And I really like, having this little bedside iPad. But yeah, this is tempting to me. I've got to see what it would cost to, if I could trade this one in, if I could get anything for it. But I really like the new design. I'm not happy with the camera bump, but I'm super happy that it's got the Apple Pencil support. I had a communication today with our friend Chris Bailey, best-selling author, former guest on our show. And Chris is a guy who's always thinking about how he can, be more mindful with his work. And he's decided he's getting himself an iPad Mini with a cellular radio. and he says that's going to be his new phone.
Whoa.
And he's going to leave his phone at home. He's got an older phone, and he says he's got a cellular watch. So if he wants to really go light, he can do that. But just he's going to do the iPad mini. I said, Chris, first, please do this experiment. And second, when can you come on MPU and tell us about how it went?
Yeah.
Because I got to hear the whole story. But he's super jazzed about it. And I can see that. I mean, I feel like this device, I could see people choosing to do that. And I'm just real curious. I hope I'm not scooping Chris's his website on this. get him mad at me, but whatever. But I think it's a great idea, and I do think that this iPad opens up options for a lot of people.
I think it does too. I ordered mine with the cellular. I'll add it to my just pull from my data plan. The pool of data we have.
Yeah.
Because I can see that being very attractive. It's like just having this little thin and light device. And I have really come around, and we've spoken about this. I've really come around this year that I just don't. My sort of work isn't well suited to the iPad, and the work that is, I just don't want to do it on an iPad. I'd just rather pull out my M1 laptop if I'm somewhere else. And so, in a way, that has sort of freed me from having a big iPad with a keyboard and trackpad. And so, I'm excited to have this as like an around the house, just small tablet to do stuff on, like you said. End of the day, I think it'll be perfect. So,
is this going to be your only iPad?
I don't know. I mean, I've got a 2018, the first flat side one, an 11-inch. It's a fantastic iPad. I have the Magic Keyboard with trackpad. I don't think I'll get rid of that, but I think there'll definitely be some shuffling around, and I'll be sure to report back on that after I kind of feel it out.
Yeah, if I decide to get one, I haven't decided yet, but it would be, I think it would open up the possibility of me taking the smaller one, like the mini, when I go out to like client meetings or whatever, to take quick notes on, along with an M1 laptop. I think that could be a really nice, like, mobile rig. The bottom line is the M1 and Apple Silicon just makes the laptops bring so much parity to the laptops that it didn't have with the iPad before, that it does change the equation. And there's a bunch of discussion about this going on in the MPU forums, and some people have told me that I'm not being fair enough to the iPad anymore. We're going to cover this in the next feedback show because I have thoughts, but I just, I've changed my usage of the iPad. I haven't thrown it out the window. And I'm glad that Apple made this device. I think a lot of people are going to be really happy with it.
I had one of those M1 moments today, actually, during our tech rehearsal for the podcastathon. So my laptop will be on the table, and it's routing video and audio for a Discord call, and it's also at the same time running Zoom. And so the control room can talk to me, and I can hear them in my my in-ear monitors. And last year, I used my 16-inch MacBook Pro that I had, and the fans were running the entire time, loudly. And today, that M1 13-inch MacBook Pro sat on that table for, probably 5 or 6 hours running that call, running Zoom, plugged into an interface and plugged into Ethernet and an HDMI capture device this year. And no noise, no struggle. And it was just one of those moments of like, man, Apple, they've really got this product in a good place. And I don't know, it really like struck me as like, oh, dang, laptop, like you're doing a good job.
Additional features on the iPad mini: stereo landscape speakers. If you turn it in landscape mode, there's stereo sound. And new Smart Folio, and you had already mentioned second generation pencil support. But that's the dream, right? You sit there with a little tiny iPad and a pencil snapped to the side of it, and along with some of the new features in iOS 15 that make it easier to take notes. I could see that working. I
just think this is a big win. It starts at $499, and it comes in some of those new colors, which I'm sure we'll talk about with the phone. Yeah, if you're an iPad mini fan, I think that it was the headliner for a lot of people. This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Quip. Here's a question you probably don't get asked very often. When's the last time you got rewarded for brushing your teeth? Well, with Quip's smart electric toothbrush, Good habits can earn you great perks like free products, gift cards, and more. The Quip Smart Brush is for adults and kids alike and connects to the Quip app with Bluetooth, so you can track when and how well you're brushing, get tips and coaching to improve your habits, earn points for daily brushing, and bonus points for competing in challenges like streaks. You can also redeem for rewards like free products, gift cards, and discounts from Quip and their partners. Here's a cool feature. Quip has a built-in 2-minute timer that pulses every 30 seconds to remind you when to switch sides and help you know that you're cleaning your whole mouth evenly. Turns out that 90% of people don't brush for a full 2 minutes or don't clean evenly. So with this built-in timer, you don't have to worry. Beyond the brush, Quip has everything you need to build a complete routine, like mint or watermelon toothpaste with anti-cavity ingredients for strong, healthy teeth, floss that expands to clean and comes in a refillable dispenser to reduce waste, and refillable sugar-free gum that delivers long-lasting minty flavor, freshens breath, and can help prevent cavities. In addition to brush heads, Quip also delivers that fresh floss, toothpaste, mouthwash, and gum refills every 3 months from just $5. And shipping is free, so you can save money and skip the hustle and bustle of in-store shopping. Join over 5 million people who are using Quip. Save hundreds of dollars compared to other Bluetooth-enabled brushes. You can get your Quip Smart Brush for just $45. So start getting rewards for brushing your teeth today. Go to Get Quip. That's Get Quip, Q-U-I-P, getquip.com/MPU right now to save $10 on a Quip Smart Electric Toothbrush. That's $10 off a smart electric toothbrush at getquip.com/MPU. Quip, the Good Habits Company. Our thanks to Quip for their support of the show and Relay FM. So up next, we had the 7th generation Apple Watch. This is Jeff Williams walking along a cliff, talking about the Apple Watch.
Of course, as Jeff Williams does.
Sure, I guess. There was an announcement in here that watchOS 8 was bringing better workout and fall detection for bike riding. So that's great for me as someone who rides and occasionally crashes a bike.
Is it occasionally, though? It seems like it's frequently to me. I just get these random pictures of your wipeout sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes things happen. But
what are you doing? Because I have a bike too that I ride all the time, and I don't crash. I think you're more aggressive with your bike riding than I am.
Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, also, I remember watching that thinking, well, maybe Stephen Hackett will live a little bit longer. That's good.
Yeah, that's right. Also support for e-bikes. And so they've worked out a way to more accurately work out how much, effort you're making versus effort the bike is making. Also, I guess this would benefit people riding things like Peloton or stationary bike, maybe. It just seems like a lot of attention has gone into bicycle riding and the Apple Watch, which is great because as someone who's worn an Apple Watch mostly since it's come out and who rides a lot, in the early days, the Apple Watch wasn't that useful on a bike, and it has gotten a lot better. And this just seems to really push it further down the road. And that's a watchOS 8 feature, so old watches should get it as well, as my understanding. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah. The interesting thing of the announcement was the flat side controversy. I mean, all of the rumor sites, Mark Gurman included, had predicted that we were going to have something that looks like, the design aesthetic of the iPhone and the iPad Pro in a watch. And I don't know, we never talked about it on the show going in, but I actually was a little nervous about that because I really love my Apple Watch. And I felt like if they do this flat side thing, I'm not sure I'm going to want to wear that. It didn't sound to me like a very attractive watch. And then also I've got all these bands. Does that mean I'm going to lose all my bands? Well, it turns out we got a new Apple Watch that has a slightly bigger screen, but it's still just as curvy as always. And somehow the rumors got it all wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting story. And, we may never know really what happened with those rumors. It may be that
Yeah.
I truly believe that sometimes Apple will plant information to try to root out leakers, or maybe there was a change, although Gruber thinks that's probably not the case. But something, was rumored that didn't take place. But I think, I mean, looking at Apple's website, and of course, one downside to no in-person events, like we were speaking about at the top of the show, is there was no hands-on the day of. It used to be that they'd announce these phones, media would go out into the lobby, and there would be 10 videos on YouTube that night of, media outlets looking at the phones, looking at the watches. And we haven't
Yeah.
had that. And so we're only really reliant at this point, even a few days later, on what Apple has said and shown. But I think pushing the screen out to the edges, the much thinner bezels, I think it looks really nice, especially if you're using a watch face that uses a color background or maybe one of those photo watch faces, because it really shows it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've done some new engineering on the glass to make it less breakable, I guess. And now I know you've broken some Apple Watch glass.
Three
Three.
watches.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've never broken one. I did scratch one, and then the one I'm currently wearing is a Series 5, which I bought the titanium one, which has the better, I don't remember what it's called, but it's a better crystal.
Yeah, they use sapphire on those.
Yeah. And that watch, there are 0 scratches on that watch after 2 years of wearing it every day and banging it into door handles and everything else. So it's a good watch. So I'm glad they made it better, but I've never really had a problem with it. I've gone in the ocean with it. I've done a lot with this watch on and not had any problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually like the design of it. I'm glad they didn't muck around with it too much. And I know that a lot of people making podcasts may disagree with me, but it's just, for me personally, I like the look of it. I'm good. I do like the idea of additional pixels on the screen, though. I think if you're going to put it on your wrist, you might as well get as many pixels as possible. We talked about this at WWDC, but I just think, the bigger and more colorful the screen gets, the more obvious it is that Apple's watch faces are not sufficient. We need more, and they need to find a way to let other people make them.
Yeah, it really screams for that at this point. And maybe they'll do it, and maybe they'll do it in the future. But it would be one thing if Apple were more aggressive about updating old watch faces or creating new ones that are actually good or like
Yeah,
useful.
yeah,
But
like
so many of the ones they've added over the years, I think, a lot of them are so specific to different people's taste that's like, I don't know like what the default one is anymore.
yeah. I feel like the watch face they use are like, they're made to look amazing in stage presentations. Like this, just with the announcement, they had this like liquid one where the numbers like bleed over to the edge and
Yeah.
like change, and that looked really cool on stage. But I can never imagine myself using that watch face.
No. It's like the lava lamp of watch faces.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But I use, there's 3 that I kind of jump between. I use the California face, which I guess shouldn't surprise you, but I don't use it in the full screen mode. I use it in the circular mode so I can get some complications. And then I use the modular ones. I use the modular digital and the modular analog, both of which I've loaded up with complications, and it just kind of depends on how I feel that day as to which one I turn on. But I'm not super happy about any of them. I do, and I know this is a tangent because we're talking about hardware today, but boy, that product needs an infusion of creativity for watch faces, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again sometime.
The battery life, they say, is about the same. They say 18 hours. I think people's, maybe more than any other product, I think people's actual battery life on the Apple Watch is really all over the place, just depending on how you use it and what you do with it. But one neat feature, and it's an option, you can go out and now get a USB-C Apple Watch puck, charger thing that will charge it much more quickly. And so, in particular, if you're doing overnight sleep tracking, you can get 8 hours of battery life in just a few minutes. Really, that sort of nice fast charging is now available, but you do need that nicer charger. And the charger doesn't come in the box. You got to go out and get the nicer one, just kind of like the iPhones, right? You can fast charge an iPhone if you go get the right cable and the right brick. But for people who use their watch that way, it's nice that there's an option, even if it is optional.
So, are you getting one?
I don't know. I mean, I'm happy with the watch I've got. I don't like the aluminum colors, any of them. And so it would be a titanium, and they're not shipping yet, right? They've said later this fall. So I'm kind of thinking about waiting to see what the MacBook Pro
Yeah.
field looks like this fall, and then deciding, do I, upgrade to an M1X or M2 or whatever, or do I do a watch? Because doing all of this is getting expensive quickly. So, like I said, I'm happy with the watch I've got now. We'll see. I don't feel super compelled by this upgrade, to be perfectly honest. I think it's fantastic if you're coming from a 3 or 4 or 5. The Apple Watch I don't think is designed or built in mind with with people who upgrade every year.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I'm tempted. Because my Series 5, the one thing that really stood out to me is that it's much brighter when it's in standby mode. And mine, the screen noticeably dims, with that always on display. And I understand it's much brighter now. And I feel like my Series 5 is probably at peak return value. If I wait another year, I'm not sure how much it'll be worth in terms of return value. So I'm gonna wait though and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the same problem. I bought this titanium as a kind of like a treat yourself kind of moment, and I smile every time I look at this thing. I've never had an Apple Watch that I liked as much as this one. And so it's like, if I'm going to trade it in for an aluminum one, I might just decide to stay with titanium for another year with this one. We'll see. But yeah, nice upgrade. Good on Apple. We didn't mention, but the Series 3 sticking around is my pain point. I mean, you and I both know a bunch of people develop apps for the watch, and maintaining support for Series 3 is like the bane of their existence. But so that's one reason why I wish the Series 3 would go away. But also, I just don't want people out there buying Series 3 Apple Watches. I feel like Apple should find a way to get that Apple Watch SE low enough in price that people can get that one, because it's so much better than the Series 3.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I think that's a real shame that they couldn't bring down the SE price, but maybe next year. There's always
yeah. We'll just have to wait and see.
Wait and see.
I mean, it's so easy to spend other people's money, isn't it?
It's great. Yeah, Apple, come on. They sort of tied into this. They sort of walked right into Apple Fitness Plus, which I thought was interesting. Services just weren't at the top of the event. They were sort of spread throughout.
Yeah.
But the short of it is, there's more classes coming every week. They have some new categories coming, including Pilates and guided meditations, and workouts to get you ready for snow sports. So I guess all you snowboarders out there, get ready to get strong.
That was kind of odd, but yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. I think the biggest thing here is that Share Play, which is the iOS 15 feature, will not be there at launch, which is on Monday, as we're listening to this, coming right up. Share Play is going to be coming to Fitness Plus. And so you'll be able to get a group of friends and do a Fitness Plus class together. I think that's really cool. I mean, a lot of people like group fitness. A lot of people obviously are uncomfortable or unable to do that right now. And to me, at least, I haven't really been sold on the idea of Share Play of like, let me watch a movie with somebody and we're on a FaceTime call, it all syncs up. Like that doesn't really pique my interest.
Yeah.
But this does. And I think a lot of people, if they ever use Share Play, it may be through Fitness Plus, to be honest.
Yeah, the one I thought that they should do, because we do competitions with some of my family and friends, but we can't do a competition with everybody. So I thought that was going to be when they started talking about this kind of like more community environment, that was going to be the next penny to drop. I was kind of shocked that that wasn't announced because I felt like that would have been a pretty easy feature to add, but priorities, yada, yada, yada. Um, I use Apple Fitness Plus almost daily. Are you a fan? Are you using this service at all at this point?
Yeah, I
Where do you
am.
stand?
Several times a week, I'm doing a
Yeah,
class, and I set my iPad up on a shelf in my garage, and I have my AirPods, and I've really come to enjoy it. You know, my wife uses a different online service that I think fits what she wants to do better,
sure.
but I've been really happy with it. And we pay for Apple One because we want all the other stuff. So it's like, well, I have it, and it's been great. I think that they do a really good job. And Tim Cook or Jeff Williams or I forget the guy who's in charge of fitness, his name. One of them was like, something that's special about Fitness Plus is like the trainers, you get to have a relationship with them. And you've talked about this where your family has favorite trainers
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
like following along with them and you get to know them because they're just sharing, naturally in the conversation. Like I did a cool down session the other night and the trainer Greg did it. And, it was sort of like stretching, breathing thing. And he mentioned that, while he was doing things like this, he would often think about his dad. I was like, that's a really, it gives you connection with these people on the other side of the screen. And I've really come to like the way they've done it. And so, Fitness Plus is a service that I will continue to pay for and continue to use.
yeah. I mean, one of our favorite trainers had a baby, and like we were following her on Instagram, and like it's like you feel like you know her. I mean,
Yeah,
people have the same experience with podcasters.
sure.
Sometimes we'll meet listeners somewhere, and you do get this relationship with these people. So I'm really happy with that. I used to pay way more money to be along to a gym before all this stuff happened. And when things get better, I do not intend to go back to gym. I like this so much better. Apple made like a little promo video, and every point they made has stuck with me. It's like I don't have to deal with the weirdness of a gym. I can use my own shower. It's just like everything.
Yeah,
It's just I love it, and I didn't think I would like it because what I was doing before was I was using Fitbod, which gives you workouts,
yeah.
and then I would watch like YouTube videos about Socrates or something, and but no, actually having someone up there coaching me on the screen is way better than looking at an app that's giving me little videos of what I'm supposed to do next. And it just, I guess we've said enough. But if you haven't tried Fitness Plus and you're interested in it, it works. It works. Good job, Apple. I'm
Good
just
job.
I'm curious when they're going to like take the next step and like suddenly you're going to see like Apple branded fitness equipment that, why aren't they doing kind of the Peloton model?
Yeah, or even like put Gym Kit is this system they have where your Apple Watch can talk to equipment, like a treadmill or something in a
Yeah.
gym. And even that, I was like, why can't I, more easily get my hands on that as someone who's, slowly building out a home gym. I hope they do more of that in the future, more integration because a lot of people have that equipment or maybe are looking at it. And if it
Yeah.
tied in with this stuff better, I'd be more likely to go out and get something that worked with this as opposed to something that didn't.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace. Make your next move and enter offer code MPU at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build your online presence and run your business. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, they've got you covered. Squarespace combines cutting-edge design and world-class engineering, making it easier than ever to establish your home online and make your ideas a reality. Squarespace has everything you need to create a beautiful and modern website. You start with a professionally designed template and use drag and drop tools to make it your own. You can then customize the look and feel, the settings, the products you have on sale, and more with just a few clicks. And all Squarespace websites are optimized for mobile. Your content automatically adjusts so it will look great on any device. You'll also get free unlimited hosting, top-of-the-line security, and dependable resources to help you succeed. There's nothing to patch or upgrade. They have award-winning 24/7 customer support if you need any help. They'll even let you quickly and easily grab a unique domain name. Plus, you'll have everything you need for SEO and email marketing to get your ideas out there. You can use Squarespace to turn your big idea into a new website or showcase your work with their incredible portfolio designs. You can publish your next blog post, promote your business, announce an upcoming event, and much more. I am a huge fan of Squarespace. I've been a customer for many, many years. I've got my most important things on there. Both MacSparky.com and my legal website are both Squarespace hosted. And just recently, I had the opportunity to refresh the design of MacSparky.com. I love it. And when I go to the website now, it still kind of surprises me to see that new design. It looks so great, and I did it largely all on a Sunday in front of the television. So head to squarespace.com/MPU for a free trial with no credit card required. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code MPU to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Again, that is squarespace.com/MPU. And when you decide to sign up, use the offer code MPU to get that 10% off your first purchase and show your support for the Mac Power users. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of the Mac Power users and all of Relay FM. It took them a while, but they got to the main event eventually. We got the new iPhone 13 and 13 Pro. So I guess let's start with the name. Are you surprised that they use the unlucky number 13?
No, I mean, I don't think Apple really cares about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I'm not either. I am a little surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm just curious as to what goes into the decision to make it an S versus a new number, Because I could have easily seen this year being an S year.
And it maybe arguably kind of was an S year.
Yeah.
I don't know. That may be a little unfair, but for a long time, it was 3G, 3GS, 4, 4S.
Yeah.
Very consistently. And they've sort of broken that down where we had the 7, the 8, the 10, the 10S, then 11, 12, 13. And so I wonder if the S is gone.
I hope so.
I don't know.
So. I think it's easier if you just have every year get a new number.
Yeah.
Either way. So starting with the iPhone 13, not the Pro, just the iPhone 13. We got the same sizes as last year, the regular one and the 13 mini. The screens are brighter, 800 nits up to 1200 for HDR. And we got some new colors.
Yeah, the colors on everything this year are just really interesting to me. There's not really
That is not approval. That is not approval.
No, I don't. And it's just, part of that, so much of that's personal taste, right? But the 13 comes in a product red, which I think looks fantastic. But then there's pink, blue, midnight, which is like space gray, but if you turn the blue slider up a little bit, like a dark blue gray.
Yeah.
And then starlight, which is silver with just like, it's like a someone breathed on it and they, like a breath of gold dust settled into the silver paint. And that's actually the color my wife likes. She's getting a new iPhone mini this year. But, and the same thing with the Apple Watch. There's not a space gray. There's not a silver. There's no like neutral color. And Apple has teams of people who study color and they know what's in and what's not. I certainly don't. I wear a black podcast t-shirt every day, so don't listen to me about fashion. But it is something that I just found a little surprising. Like, oh, even the sort of defaults got a tweak this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I am glad the mini's back. I had written in a post that I don't know anybody that owns a current mini that wants to make their next phone a mini. And boy, did I hear about that. So a lot of people emailed me to tell me that they have a mini and they would like another mini. So I was a little wrong there, but they did up the battery life this year, which I think probably solves one of the biggest problems for the mini was the battery life.
Yeah. When I was telling Mary, that evening when she got home from work about what was, in the event. So, the 13 mini, she's got the 12 mini. She really likes the size. I said, it's got a better camera, but it's going to get an hour and a half more battery life. And she said, I want one. And she has it never, ever wanted to upgrade a phone year over year. And this time, I think, I mean, the camera was part of it, but I think it was mostly battery life. Now, that's a little bit of a
Yeah.
condemnation of the 12
Yeah, it
mini,
is. Yeah.
but she's, she's all for it. So I think that people who like the mini, maybe they have a dark future ahead of them if it doesn't, continue to be updated. And that's certainly the rumor. But this one looks like a pretty good upgrade over the last one.
And who knows, the mini can still be saved. I feel like, with better battery life and a better camera system, you may find a bunch of people want minis this year that didn't buy them last year. So Apple may change their mind based on what happens this year.
Maybe. So if you like your 12 mini, buy a 13 mini to tell Apple to keep
Yes.
making it.
That's exactly what Tim wants you to do. Just buy another one,
true.
just to make the point. Vote with your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
The notch got smaller. Honestly, that means nothing to me. I just don't think I care at all that the notch got smaller. Is that a big deal to you?
Honestly, I don't even see the notch anymore. Like, it's just what the phone is. I mean, we'll see if it's like a big difference in person, but I can't imagine that it's going to be the reason a lot of people go out and upgrade.
Yeah. There was an interesting tidbit. The antenna lines are made of recycled water bottles.
That's pretty cool. I missed that.
Yeah, that is cool. Apple's trying to do it right. Why do the A15's out, the A15 Bionic? How many years have they been calling it the Bionic chip now? I'm kind of tired of that.
Yeah, it's been around a long time. I would like to maybe change it up a little bit. I think there is some question about how much faster this is than the A14, but in my mind, that's mostly academic because for years I've never thought that my iPhone was slow.
Yeah. I mean, I often, when you watch these events, you think about the competitors and then they get to the part with the chip. It's like, what do the competitors say? I mean, I don't know exactly what the parallel is on the Android side now for the top of the line chip, but I know it's like years behind Apple's.
Yeah, it's the Snapdragon 888, and it is by most accounts, basically any way you look at it, is slower than what Apple's doing. And remember too, Apple it's far more than just what ends up in the phone. Apple is really building this entire family of processors, and so I wouldn't get too worked up about any specific chip being any specific way because on the whole, they're so far ahead that it doesn't really matter to me if this one's not as impressive as maybe it could have been. Like, it's still fantastic.
Did Apple give any explanation of why the battery life is so much better now? Because I mean, on the mini you get another hour and a half. On the regular, the iPhone 13, you get 2.5 more hours. I mean, I don't think they really ever explained what they're doing to get that much more battery life.
I think they mentioned in passing that the phones do have bigger batteries, but Apple never talks about actual battery capacity. It's kind of hand wavy, like there's a battery, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I assume it's some combination of that and, whatever new efficiencies they've been able to wring out of this thing.
Yeah. Also, this is the second year of 5G, so I'm guessing they probably got smarter about that too.
Maybe, yeah.
The camera rigs, what do you think of the new cameras in the iPhone 13?
I think it's welcome that the ultra wide is better. It's not as good as what comes on the 13 Pro, but I think the ultra wide has been a little behind, especially in low light performance. And so bringing that up to snuff is good. The thing that I think is most impressive to me, though, is that they've been able to bring the optical image stabilization that they introduced on the 12 Pro last year, the sensor shift. So instead of just moving the lens around, the actual sensor moves.
Yeah.
Bringing that to the mainline iPhone is really, really cool. And I think a lot of people are really going to notice that.
Yeah, agreed. And just overall, I mean, they upgraded the hardware on all the cameras this year, and I think that's good. Let us know in the forum if you guys think we should try and get Austin Mann back. I feel like this might be a really good year to talk to him with some significant changes to the hardware on these phones. They also talked about MagSafe and this new wallet, and the in passing they made the comment that the wallet now has Find My support, and it seems like I can't get the straight answer as to what that means. Have you seen anything on that?
No. And my assumption is that the phone just knows, and when the wallet drops off, that I don't think there's like an AirTag sewn into that thing. Like, where would it
Yeah,
go?
yeah.
So I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah, I don't really understand either. Does that apply to old wallets or or only new wallets? But either way, that is something that we're going to keep our eyes on. And the fact that they thought of putting, find. Oh, you know what? They called it Find My Support. They did not call it AirTags.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, well maybe it's just like you said. It just tracks when the wallet drops off. But boy, Apple, that is something we would all like to see more of with the other things you make.
Yeah.
Apple TV remote, please.
Oh yeah, that thing should have an AirTag baked into it. Like,
Yeah,
you always lose it in the cushions, and you want it to beep, and it can't.
we have this thing with cinematic mode. I want to talk about that in relation to the iPhone 13 Pro.
Okay.
Let's just put because that one is one I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah, I bet. Mr. Disney vlogger over there.
Yeah, the one that has like 100 views per video.
Yeah, that one.
Never have I worked so hard for so little.
That's okay. You're having fun.
Yeah, it's actually that's all it is. It's fun. Same prices.
Yeah, that's great. The iPhones are expensive, and it's nice to see them be able to retain that price point, especially with all the new camera hardware. Sometimes when Apple adds a new hardware feature, it's sort of used as as a reason or as an excuse, depending on how you look at it, to make the cost go up. But they didn't do that. They held the line this year, and the like on the iPads, the storage situation I think is it's a little bit better this year, which is good too.
Well, it's a lot better. It starts at 128 gigs, which remember it was 16 just a few years ago.
Oh man, I complained about that on every podcast I recorded for years.
Yeah, but at 128 I think it makes the entry level iPhone very usable for most people. So good.
Yep.
And with all those rumors circulating about chip prices going up, with all the things going on with, the chip shortages, I thought that was kind of like just priming the pump to tell us that the prices were going to go up on the iPhones, and they didn't. So good on all that.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Indeed. Have you ever looked at your company's hiring practices and thought, there's got to be a better way to do this? You're not the only person. So look at Indeed. Indeed is innovating recruiting by letting you only pay for quality candidates that meet your must-have requirements. When hiring gets hard, you need Indeed, the job site that makes hiring incredibly simple. Just attract, interview, and hire. In fact, with Indeed, you can do all of your hiring in one place, even the interviewing. So don't just hope that the perfect candidate will find you. Use Indeed's hiring tools to help you cut through the noise to hire faster and smarter. In fact, Indeed Instant Match provides a list of quality candidates whose resumes are on Indeed the moment you post a sponsored job. With Indeed assessments, choose from over 135 skills tests. These can help you make sure you're finding the applicants from people around the world with the skills you really need. And according to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. So join the more than 3 million businesses that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. So get started right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/MPU. That's a $75 credit at Indeed.com/MPU, Indeed.com/MPU. This offer is valid through September 30th. Terms and conditions apply. Our thanks to Indeed for the support of the show and Relay FM.
Okay, 13 Pro showed up. It looks a lot like the 12 Pro, which in my mind is kind of a good thing. I really like my 12 Pro.
I do too. I think the flat sides are fantastic. I like the stainless steel, even though it does make it heavier.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice premium feeling phone.
Yeah. This year, the new color is Sierra Blue, which is a nice light blue. Of all the custom colors over the years, this is the one that I'm most tempted by. I think it looks kind of nice.
Interesting. I have been torn on this. I've had a silver phone for years, and I like that sort of classic look. But the Sierra Blue, like it's definitely grown on me since the event, and Mary's pushing me to that because she's like, yeah, do something fun this year, and I just like I know I got friends who like the gold. I just can't do it. And
Yeah.
again, the black podcast T-shirt every day, and me, can't do the gold phone. But I think that the Sierra Blue may be what I end up with. It may be a game day decision on pre-order, which is 12 hours from now. But we'll see.
Well, I've already got my pre-order picked out, but I'm not going to tell you yet. Let's wait till we get to
Ooh,
the end.
okay.
The cameras are big boys. I mean, I've never noticed such big cameras in the back of an iPhone before, I mean, I guess part of me who's always asking for a better camera system than the iPhone, I shouldn't complain, but boy, those are big cameras.
For a long time, we've spoken about the reason people upgrade iPhones is the camera. That for most people, it's by far the best or maybe even only camera they own. And it is like the reason people upgrade.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting on the 13, but especially the 13 Pro. Apple announced them as if they were cameras with like phones attached to the back of them. Like when they showed off the 13 Pro, it's like the zooming CGI of the camera bump. And even
and the
if you
lens
look,
system,
yeah, and if like you look at the web pages or the product videos, so much to talk about, especially with the Pro camera, is about the camera and what the camera system, I should say, and
yeah.
what it can do. Yeah, like the bump is a little annoying if you don't use a case, but most people do, and most cases accommodate for it. So, have at it.
Yeah, well, where earlier I was saying I don't want any bump on the back of an iPad mini, I'll take as big a bump as Apple wants to give me on the back of an iPhone because I use that as a camera and I do want those better lens systems. And the one that really stood out to me the most was the ultra wide because I have the 12 Pro and the ultra wide lens on it is almost it feels to me like a gimmick lens on the 12 Pro. It's just not up to the standard of the normal wide lens. Doesn't do the night shots, and I like that wide field of view, but it's just hard to use it because the footage it gets is not great.
Hmm.
And they did a lot. I mean, not only did the iPhone 13, the standard iPhone 13, get an improved wide, ultra wide camera, the iPhone 13 Pro got an even better upgrade to the ultra wide, and I am super jazzed to see how that works.
Yeah, it got the ability to autofocus in the ultra
Yeah,
wide, and that's pretty spectacular. And I think that what that gives them is not only the better ultra wide, but if you go and look at what they're talking about, the ability now to do macro photography and macro video, and it's using the ultra wide lens to do that. That's something you've never really been able to do on an iPhone before, unless you went out and bought, a moment lens or something, Olo clip or something
yeah,
like that, which are fine products. And I've owned plenty of them on and off over the years, but now it's just in the phone. And
yeah,
I'm really excited about the macro photography. I like that style of photography a lot. A lot of what I do at work, like documenting weird Apple products, like could benefit from that sort of photography. And before now, I'd have to break out my camera and like this special lens and all this lighting. And now for, something quick, I can just do it right on my phone. Like, yeah, sign me up.
yeah. And on the flip side, the optical zoom lens is now 3x. It was 2x before. It was 2.5x on the Pro Max last year, but now 3 times. I think more reach is better. I really like. I've never felt like 2x was enough for a zoom lens, and now it's 3, which I understand is somewhere around 70 millimeters, I believe.
Yeah,
Equivalent.
it's 77
Okay,
millimeters.
nice. And
Equivalent.
Yeah, so that's great. And
Mhm.
I mean, bring it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of Android phones have really pushed that. You know, some of them use like periscope lenses where the light actually gets reflected down inside the body and that sort of thing. And Apple's not going to that length, and maybe they will in the future. But I agree with you. Like, I would prefer more flexibility out of my camera. And it's amazing how many times I've used the optical zoom on the 12 Pro Max, not even like taking pictures of like, wildlife or kids or something. Just like, I seen like take a picture of something, in
Just
everyday
punch in.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just punch in. And so I'm excited about that.
So you've got now 13, I think, is it 13 millimeter for the ultra wide and 77 for the
Hmm.
zoom. So you've got a nice wide range of optical lenses. So you don't have that cruddy digital zoom stuff, but you've got a really nice set of lenses there. And, better low light. Every year they get bigger sensors and better low light. So, like I said, I think this is going to be taking, I mean, the iPhone 12 as it is takes amazing pictures. But when you get a bigger sensor, you get a better ultra wide. I think we'll probably see another noticeable bump up to the iPhone 13 Pro. So, amen. Let's talk a minute about the cinema mode, what they call it, cinematic mode.
Yes.
So that's the idea. We had portrait mode on the cameras of the existing phones, which I use a lot. I don't know. Do you use it much, Steven?
Not a ton.
Okay, so portrait mode is the idea where it uses a combined bit of information. Largely, I think it creates a three-dimensional map based on the zoom lens and the normal lens to map the depth of field. So then
Hmm.
it can do like kind of that blurring effect you get with really nice cameras and lenses where you get separation of the background. And I know camera snobs will say it's not good enough and it doesn't work right, but it gets progressively better every year. And for a lot of people, that's great. But I've always wanted it on video, particularly as Daisy and I make these videos at Disneyland together. I think it'd be great to have a little blurry background. And I do have a nice camera that I bring with us, but it's heavy and its stabilization is not great. And, it would be cool if I could do that with my iPhone. And but they announced cinematic mode, which they really sold as a focus racking mechanism
Yeah.
where you can have like, well, they did that with like, it was a knockoff on Knives Out, where they've got this, a murder has occurred and the investigators there and they zoom between the suspect and the object on the shelf or whatever. That's okay. I didn't think it was great um, in terms of just the racking mechanism. It looked to me like the lens was still hunting a bit. It didn't always just like get right to the focus. It seemed a
Hmm.
little faster than what I'm used to seeing with that type of effect, when done by a human using a movie camera. But, that's cool. But the thing that really stood out for me, which Apple never really made explicit, was no, this is a computational photography. We are blurring the background, not using the physics of the lens, but using the same stuff we use to blur the background in portrait mode.
Yeah. The other feature that they like, it was a sentence, but if you go and like watch the product video, it's in more detail. So when you're shooting a scene, David, you're looking at the lens and something's behind you and you turn around and look at it and the focus follows you because they're doing all this machine learning. Well, you can also do that in post. And so you can change it after you've shot the video and maybe make adjustments to what it did automatically. And so maybe you can accommodate for some of the things that it does that may be weird. I agree with you in their demo video, which is a lot of fun. Like, yeah, this is doing some things that I wouldn't do, as someone who has a nice camera, like knows a little bit about how to use it. Some of the moves weren't quite what I would, which is what I would want to do. But I think that the ability to go in afterwards and tweak it like you can portrait photos, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it's not going to look as good as video I shoot on my full size Sony sensor, right?
No, of course not.
It's not going to. But if I could in a jam use the iPhone camera to do this, and I do really believe that like that blurry background when you pull your subject out, it really makes a more pleasant viewing experience. I'm going to be giving it a shot. I mean, I'm super curious about it, and I can't wait to try it out. I mean, maybe it'll be ugly like the original portrait modes, or maybe it'll be pretty good. I don't, if you use portrait mode today, you go on your iPhone 12 or 11 or whatever, and you just put your phone in portrait mode, it live renders that bokeh, that that separation and blurry background while you're shooting a picture. In fact, some people like that have wanted to get that in their video. They do like a screen recording while they've got bokeh mode open in their Photos app.
Hmm.
That's like a hack around it right now. So the phone is capable of doing it, but like I said, I feel like they got really hung up on the racking and the focus change. And I feel like the main feature here is there aren't a lot of people that are going to be shooting, mystery, mystery movies with their phone. But I think there are a lot of people that would like to get more separation with their video on occasion.
I think so too. And I think like portrait mode in photos, we'll figure out what it's good at and where
Yeah.
it sort of falls down, and people will accommodate for that. But like portrait photo, and you said it a second ago, it should improve over time because so much of this is machine learning and algorithms and all this intelligent stuff. That means that Apple can make it better as time goes on, just like they have with portrait mode on photos. And so just because it's like potentially weird now doesn't mean it always will be. And yeah, I think Apple packing more creative tools into the phone is fantastic. And this is an example that, it may have some limitations. Like for instance, cinematic mode is limited to 1080p at 30 frames a second. So no high frame rate and no 4K. That'll get better with time as
Yeah.
well. And we'll see. This is a first step, and I think that we should judge it as that once we get our hands on it.
Yeah. But when you take the iPhone's great video stabilization, we may have a future Disneyland field guide, video shot just with the iPhone, just to see how it goes.
It's pretty cool.
The other big thing about the new iPhone Pro, the 13 Pro, that we didn't mention yet is the variable frame rate. It ranges from 10 to 120 hertz. Historically, it's been at 60. What'd you think about that?
I'm not a high frame rate person.
I forgot you don't like it. You turn it off, right?
I do. It's off on my iPad Pro because it makes me feel nauseous. And
Okay.
whether or not
Well, I
that's true
love
with
it.
the phone, we'll see.
Yeah.
But Mike Hurley and all these people are really excited about it. I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to turn it off in the accessibility settings. But for almost everybody, this is going to be a really nice upgrade. I know people have been really enthusiastic about this feature on a bunch of Android phones. It's all over the place in the Android ecosystem, and the Apple's a little behind there. And so I think a lot of people are excited to get their hands on it. So not for me, but I'm glad they're doing it.
I love it. I've got it on my iPad, and I notice that I don't have it on my phone. So, and so long as it doesn't kill the battery, but it must not be because they're saying that the actual battery life has improved. I think we're good. And the idea that it drops down to 10, when you think about it, how often do you spend looking at your phone when there's nothing moving on the screen? For me, it's quite often. If I'm reading a book or an email or whatever, there are whole periods of time that, I would guess that it's dropping down to a much lower frame rate than the iPhone 12 does.
Yeah, they said I think 10 is the bottom.
Yeah.
So, yep, it's impressive, and there's been like, I don't even want to say rumors because I don't think it's that solid. There have been conversations around even like this sort of thing coming to the Mac eventually, because if you are creating high frame rate content, like in a game or video work or something, you're kind of doing without being able to see it. And
Yeah.
so some of those like with like the phones now have like brightness levels that are more in line with HDR content. You can buy a Pro Display XDR to master that content. Now I feel like frame rate's kind of the next thing where like, yeah, Apple like makes these devices, but they also make these computers that people create content on for the devices. And so I can see like ProMotion, just like extended dynamic range, just like some of the even some of the camera stuff that's come from the iPhone back to the Mac. Like these features are going to become more universal over time. I mean, I think that's good. You know, even the little Apple Watch, right? That's where we first saw Apple, you know, doing some of these things with this really, really low refresh rate. You know, the
Yeah,
iPad Pro introduced it, but the always on screen, one reason that's possible is because they can slow down that display really slow and save battery life. And so Apple uses these technologies across their products in different ways. And I think this is just another step down that road.
totally agreed, and worthwhile. I'm curious how they're going to pull that off on a tiny, thin laptop screen. But it's Apple; they figure this stuff out.
They do. And they work with, you know, Samsung and other companies that make these displays, but they often write their own controllers for them or their own drivers for them and that sort of thing. So even though the iPhone has a Samsung display part in it, it's a display that's really an Apple display, right? Samsung builds it and it's, you know, their component, but Apple has so much stuff they layer on top of it and throughout it that they can do these custom things. And so I think that we'll see more of this down the road. I really believe it.
Yeah, and but I for one am going to love, I think, the high refresh rate. So it's just going to spoil me like it does on my iPad.
Yep.
Damn you, Apple! I know what they're doing.
Well, yeah, they know what they're doing too.
Storage. We got 4 tiers this time.
Yeah, 128, 256, 512, and a new terabyte option, which seems ridiculous. But if you consider the fact that these cameras can do so much, and later this year, Apple will have ProRes video
Yeah.
on the Pro phones. ProRes is a codec that I think Apple pioneered, or at least they're sort of the leading company in it. ProRes is what the Afterburner card renders in the Mac Pro. So Final Cut wants. Some cameras will shoot ProRes natively. Other cameras don't, and you can convert it to ProRes, and it, you know, edits really nicely on Apple hardware. That's coming to the phone for shooting video. And
4K 30, right? I think 4K 30.
I think 4K 30. Yeah, I don't think it's 60. Yeah. I think it's 4K 30.
Yeah.
You cannot use it on 128 gig. They have a software limitation on that because these files are really big, but it looks incredible. It's extremely compliant if you use Apple's pipeline all the way through. And so I think for somebody who shoots with an iPhone, right, a vlog or, you know, videos like I do or whatever, and you edit in Final Cut, like, man, this is going to be seamless once this is all up and running. And so, yeah, a terabyte is a lot and it's expensive. But if your iPhone Pro or Pro Max is your video camera, then a terabyte is probably a dream come true. You know, if the 512 just doesn't do it for you.
But if you're one of those people that every year says, I want the best iPhone money can buy, do not let them sell you a terabyte phone.
No,
no. For most people, it's just not necessary.
No. What capacity
you
do you carry now?
The one I currently have is 512.
Yeah, same.
And I'm looking at my storage, and I've got 300 used. So I think 512 is probably the sweet spot for me. And but I use it for a lot, and I do shoot a lot of video and do a lot of things with it. But even someone who does as much with the phone as I do, it's not. I don't need a terabyte. I think ProRes. If you're going to use ProRes, that's a good reason, but that's about it. Or I guess if you're going to like store a ton of your documents on your phone and you've just got a lot of them, I could see that. But,
or I bought the 512 because I wanted my whole photo library locally.
Yeah.
And
me too.
That's what most of my phone is my photo library.
Yeah.
I don't need the terabyte. I'm actually about where you are, where it's like the 256 is too small, but I don't need a 400 gigabyte phone, but they're not going to sell me that. So I do the 512 and honestly, I never worry about it. You know, the days of seeing that little warning that your phone is full, I haven't seen that in a long time. I'm willing to kind of go above what I need for that extra breathing room.
And the other nice thing of buying the bigger one, because in my house, the way it works, everything gets handed down. My wife just puts a ton of data on her devices. And the only thing worse than me running out of space is my wife running out of space, because it's it's my job to make sure she doesn't have that problem. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, what'd you think of the event?
I thought it was pretty great. I think that some people felt some disappointment around the Apple Watch in particular. If you were really tied up into the idea that it was going to be a new
Square edge.
design,
Yeah.
flat sides or whatever. But I think it was very in line with what we've seen Apple do in the fall. The phones don't make a big jump most years. Most people don't buy a new phone every year. So this phone is aimed at people who have an iPhone 8 or a 10 or maybe even a 7. It's going to be fantastic for them. It's going to be fantastic for those of us on a newer phone who are going to upgrade as well. I think overall, I'm really happy with it. And the other shoe to drop is the Mac, I guess, and we'll get there when we get there later this fall. But I think for the iPhone event, Apple did a heck of a job this time.
Yeah, I've given up hope on the big iMac showing up, but
Yeah, I think
but
it's
the
a ways
rumor
off.
mill, well, that's what the rumor mill says. But they also said we were going to get Square iPhones or I Apple Watches. So who the heck knows?
That's true.
But I do think that it's that I'm the MacBook Pro and possibly Pro Mac Mini are imminent, and I am super curious to see what's in that M1X chip. I mean, that's the part for me is the nerd in me just wants to see what's the difference between the M1 and the
hmm
M1X and how much faster is it going to be. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that. In terms of the event being boring, I know that was kind of like a lot of feedback afterwards. I do think part of it is just, like it's tied into COVID fatigue, like the first time Apple started doing these video events with the cool production and the flyby, everybody was like, whoa, can you believe they did that? And now they're doing the same thing. They're taking Tim Cook out of a desert and dropping him into a stage with one step. And everybody's like, boring, meh, I think that's just because of what's going on in the world.
I think so too. I think people are ready for normalcy, and maybe this event just was kind of a stark reminder that we're not there yet. I felt
Yeah.
that a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that overall it was good. Obviously, the Macs were left. I wonder what happened to AirPods. That was also rumored.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't think there's really much to complain about here. Just because some of the products don't live up to the rumors doesn't mean they're not good. The iPad 9 is not for me, but it's a very important product, and Apple I think really made that case that it is. And so I give it a thumbs up.
Well, either way, I mean, one of the last major Apple events before everything came down was I sat next to you, and that was amazing being in the
hmm
room. So I get it. All right, so let's just go over where are we spending money? All right, you have fessed up to buying a new iPad Mini, so that's on the way.
Yep, that's on the
I
way.
I
hmm
am considering one, honestly. I just haven't had time to go in and the, confabulator of just, what if I sell this one back to Apple? How much would it cost me? And am I willing to do it? I'm actually kind of interested in it. I could almost see if I had an upgraded one that could use an Apple Pencil of that maybe becoming my out the door iPad, the one I
Yeah.
take with me on things, because I think it would probably be good enough. The Apple Watch, it sounds like you're probably out, and I may be in. I haven't accepted it yet. Let's just put it that way. Last year, I was going to buy one, and I gave my Apple Watch money to St. Jude last year.
hmm
This year, boy, I don't know. If I can get a good return price on this existing one, I may get one.
Yeah.
I just love this watch. I have so much, but I am now dealing with the thing where I need to charge the battery in the afternoon, and like some of the new features, I'm kind of envious of some of the new features. So I may do that, and I am definitely buying a new iPhone. I do it every year. My wife has see how I do this? I blame my wife. She has the
Mhm.
iPhone 10s, and poor Daisy, she needs that iPhone 12 so bad, right? But no, I'm getting an iPhone 13 Pro Max white. I got the white one last year, and I really like it. I love those silver stainless steel bands on the side. It just, and it fits with any color case. You're the one that talked me into it, and it was like not even a question for me this year. Even though I like the way the blue looks, I'm getting the white again. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll see what I do on the Apple Watch. If I were you, like the battery life thing would just really bug me. So but I'm not in that
Yeah, but
situation.
two in college too. So
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah, that's true. The phone, I'm gonna do the 13 Pro Max. I like the silver. I've done it a long time. I may do the blue just to like do something different. I've never done like the colorful iPhone version. So I've always done either black or silver, usually kind of alternating year to year. And the gold is just out. This is not my style and not my taste.
Yeah.
And so I may do the blue. I think I'm just going to pull the trigger and live a wild year, you know?
What kind of case do you put on your iPhone?
The black leather case usually.
Okay, so that would work. Like, but that's the problem with the blue is like you can't. Like, I bought I call it forest green. I forget what the Apple term for it. It's the dark green case. My leather case arrived today for a phone I haven't bought yet. So I went ahead and ordered the case, and it arrived in like one day. So I guess they had these things sitting around.
Mm-hmm.
But like the white will look good with the green. But if
Definitely.
I got the blue, I'm not sure that would look so great. The camera bump with that green case.
Yeah.
I can tell you because I thought that the camera bump was a lot bigger on this one, but when I put the new case on the old phone just for giggles, it is the new camera bump is definitely wider, but it's not that much taller than the older one. So I don't think the camera bump is as big as it seems on those renders from Apple.
It's good to know.
All right, we are the Mac Power Users. We are going to talk today in More Power Users about our favorite Apple announcements and Apple events. We both got some interesting ones written down here, so that's going to be fun to talk about. We thank our sponsors, Smile, Quip, Squarespace, and Indeed. And gang, if you've got a little extra in the pocket after all this, give it to St. Jude. Check out the Devon Think Field Guide coming out tomorrow, and we'll see you next week.